Coming to you from Israel in the Galilee on the 3rd of August. It's a Thursday. It's 8:53 in the morning. Actually, our weather for real clicked down some. I went out this morning and I realized it was somewhat cooler than it normally would be. However, let's not get too optimistic. It's going to be about 95 to 96 today as the high. But the low will go down to 73, and that cools things off in the night, which is good. Tomorrow and the day after, it's going to be about the same, they say. Chances of rain are pathetically small, 14%, 10%, 12%. So the humidity is pathetically high. It's 66%. Now, I've seen the other day the humidity was in the 70s, and then a couple hours later went down into the 30s. So it seems that it's high in the morning and then it goes down. Maybe the sun burns it out of the air. I don't know. But 66 makes things uncomfortable, but hopefully the humidity drops. And I seem to think in the late afternoon or in the mid-afternoon, the humidity was pretty low when I went outside. So the big dogs are in, the little dogs are still out. They have a very heavily shaded area that they stay in, that it's at least 10 degrees cooler than outside. So they do okay in there. So again, please pray for better weather for us. It's just torture this time of year. It's torture. And if we catch a break, it'll be over in mid-September, early September, but probably late September. What'll happen in late September if we're lucky, and I don't know what'll happen, but the way it's been in the past is you'll start having highs of 90, 92, 93, 89, and no air conditioning and windows open a lot, and it'll be a lot more palatable. In the mornings it won't be, you probably won't get over 83, 84, 85, so you can get run around and, for us, 85 is not that bad unless you're in the hot sun. So we're just waiting and watching, and we got a horrible 4 to 6 weeks to look forward to. That's it. It makes me want the rain, where a few months ago I resented the rain, but it makes you want the rain because the rain cools things off. If you get a 15-minute, 20-minute shower, it's not going to do much. But if you get a nice 4 or 5 hour rain, oh yeah, then it'll knock your temperatures down. But let's wait and see. I don't seriously think we're going to be getting any rain until late October or November. I don't think so. I'd be pretty shocked. Okay, let's do our praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. There is no Messiah like Yeshua. There is no Messiah like Yeshua. There's 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 no Messiah like Yeshua. Okie dokie. Let me adjust these patches. And got them on the prominent vertebrae, 2 of them, so they're kind of overlapping. They stick really strong. You can take showers with them and stuff. Amazing. Okay, let me go into the live stream or the chat or whatever we want to call it. I don't know. What do you want to call it? Yeah. live stream. And let me do a little housekeeping and see if we get the deleters in there today. You never know. Okay, I put offering information up in the chat. I pinned it up at the top, and it's in the chat highlighted in yellow. I have a new thing that I had people contact me and they have trouble for some reason using GoFundMe or Patreon. It's rare that this happens, very rare. But it happens. I don't know why. I get it twice a year maybe. So, and then people contact me frequently. I have no credit card or debit card. So in the past, I thought we could use Visa and MasterCard prepaid cards, like gift cards, but people sent them to me and they weren't working. Now, I don't know if they were frauding it or they didn't know what they were doing, but I couldn't use the things. You have to have a physical card to use it in an ATM machine. If it would work or not, who the heck knows? International, I don't know. You probably have to activate it for international, and probably wouldn't work. So then you could use them online, those gift cards, but they're, like I said, they weren't working. Maybe because I was using an IP address from here, from Israel, I don't know. Okay, but I stopped doing that because it was failing. So then I got the bright idea that you can, about Amazon gift cards. A lot of the people that use cryptocurrency convert their cryptocurrency to Amazon gift cards, which can be used to make purchases for a multitude of things. Now my wife and I buy from Amazon every month stuff that we need because we can get free shipping to Israel on purchases of $49, which is not very much. Now, if you go over $75, you have to pay 17% VAT tax to Israel, and Amazon collects it. So if you stay within $75 and $49, you got free shipping and no tax. So you don't get free shipping on every item, but probably half of the items. Quite a bit anyway. So that's also, there's Israel items in the Amazon thing that are in Israel you can get, you'd still have the 17% tax. So bottom line is, it's, minor inconvenience to us, but it would work with us because we do buy a lot of things from Amazon. Like what? Things for the house mostly. Like right now, we're thinking we need uh, maybe new knives, kitchen knives to cut, that you give to people when they eat. I could probably sharpen them up again. I'm pretty good with sharpening, but maybe we need another set every few years. We try to buy a set. You know, we got all the appliances we need right now. We might only be replacing them if they wear out, but we had the water boiler for coffee, electric water boiler. It was about 2 years old, but I guess it just died. It just stopped. I don't know what it was doing. It wouldn't turn off. It was getting all overheated, so it was trash. So we got a new one. We had, because of the fire, we had to replace the stove, so we got an electric stove. So if it's left on, it would be highly unlikely to cause a fire. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think very possible. It's the thing that goes red with like the glass top, right? I don't think it would, maybe if you were boiling something that had like oil and grease in it and it boiled over onto the burners, it might, I doubt it. I mean, catch fire, I don't think it would. And I think it has some timer or something where it turns itself off, I'm not sure. But it wasn't the safest one. The safest one is the kind that's rather expensive. It was over our budget, and it requires you to buy different pots and pans that work with this. So regular pots and pans don't work. But while you're cooking that, you can put your hand on it, and it wouldn't burn your hand. But we have so much good cookware. I mean, we have tons of it from collected when we were in the world, and we can't imagine just not using that and starting all over. Because you'd have to buy, about 8 or 10 pieces of this cookware to get a full kitchen going, and that's going to cost a lot of money. And then, so anyway, we didn't go that far. But I didn't want to take a chance of somebody forgetting it's on and having a fire, and that was too dangerous. This, I think what would happen is it would, if you had something on there, it would burn up what was in the pot, and it would stick to the pot, and it would be a pain in the neck to clean, and it would make smoke, and it would stink, and I don't think you'd have a fire. My guess, no fire. So it was a little bit of a compromise. My wife doesn't like it. She likes the gas better, but I think the gas was too dangerous. It happened a few times, and the last time was horrific. But so we're not going to go that route. But we didn't. So we got this new thing. With my vision, it's a little difficult for me to see the controls on there, but it's, I don't do that much cooking. And then we have hot plates that I have in the guest house, and I prefer those. Those are easy as pie. They don't start fires. They got a thermostat or something in there. When it gets too hot, it turns off. So I don't think you can start a fire with that. But she doesn't like it. The red thing on the glass top she likes better. I had one of those in Florida, and I thought it was okay. Years and years ago, but I thought it was pretty good. One of the things that I bought years and years ago was Pyrex dishware, and I liked it. You don't get any fumes coming out from, like with Teflon and stuff like that. So you get a lot of fumes from those coatings. So we use the cast iron. It doesn't do the fumes, but reacts with the food, I'm sure. But when you use the Pyrex, it's inert. It doesn't react with the food, with the heat, or anything like that. But they sure break. You got to watch them carefully. You can't just drop them in the sink. You got to gently put them in. Now, if you take them hot off the stove, let's say you just fried a steak in one, and you take them hot off the stove and you put them in the sink and run water in them to stop it from sticking, it normally isn't going to crack. I suppose if it was blazing hot and you ran ice water in there, maybe it would, but I don't even think that. They're pretty durable. I think you got to buy them on like eBay or something like that. I don't know if they make them anymore. But anyway, we had them and we don't use them. When we left America many years ago, we got rid of them. We didn't take them. So we used the cast iron mostly, and then some stainless steel, which is pretty good, you know. But you know, when you do stainless steel, you run, you know, some people that are fanatics will say, well, there's other metals in there like nickel for one, and you know, that they could react with the food, and they're probably right. But you know, there's a million things you could do. You can cook, you know, on a outside barbecue, and then people will tell you, well, the fumes from the charcoal brick. I mean, it's just a never-ending story, you know. So you have to make compromises, but I think it's a lot safer to have the electric than the flame with the gas. You know. The other thing, the gas is dangerous too, although we still have it outside in canisters, but still, anyway. So, yeah, so I came up with that idea if somebody's stuck and they want to do offerings, which happens. I hear from this occasionally. And if you're having, you know, some problem with GoFundMe or Patreon, it's extremely rare, and I don't know why you're having a problem with it. I have no idea. But the Amazon usually works. I mean, they'll take anybody's credit card, I think, and you get the gift card, and it's a digital gift card, and then you just email the data over to me, and then I could use it theoretically, and it should work. So I don't expect a lot coming through, but we do buy things from Amazon every now and then, you know. Some treat type things that we can't get here, like I don't think any place in Israel has beef jerky. I don't think they know what it is. The Americans do. Maybe the Canadians do and the Brits do, but most people don't know what what beef jerky is, so you can't get it here. My wife makes it, and it's not like what you get in the package. It's better, but it's a big job to make it. So beef jerky is quite nice. We like that. And we give some to the dogs, and they love it because it's like has the texture of a bone, but the flavor of meat. They love it. Chief can't eat it because of his teeth, and Yafa can only eat little pieces of it because she doesn't have a big mouth. Yafa's a little thing, you know, cute little thing. I'm seeing Chief. I give them food at the same time in the room, and Yafa could eat like a shark, so I give them sandwich meat on top of the premium wet dog food, okay, and it's premium. And Yafa could eat big pieces of that, and I give Chief little pieces so he doesn't have to use this, you know, he could get it down better. And I try to slow him down, but he eats like a wolf too. So he comes over there and steals our food. I caught him yesterday. So I don't know what I'm going to do now. I may have to sit in the room with them and stop that. Or just take Yafa outside when he's sleeping and give him a couple of pieces of sandwich meat in the afternoon. to offset it. When you give them the crappy dog food, which is the dry dog food, although we give them the best in Israel, they gain weight. And it's the one we give them has no cereals in it, no grains, yet they still gain weight. And it makes Chief constipated. He loves it. She loves it. They love eating it, but it doesn't do well with them. Chief gets constipated, and then he won't poop for 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden it'll come out in one afternoon, and that's, if he's in the office, he can't control it. And I don't like that at all. So I don't like giving him that. I'm thinking maybe get a different type of dog food, maybe the more regular dry food that's not so premium won't affect them that way, but I wouldn't give them too much, just give them a handful a day. I might try that, I don't know. I'm going to talk to the pets guy today, I think. So, Yapha's pestilence is way, way, way better, so is Chief's, but I think they still got some sores from the pestilence when they were there. And I think I got another week till I can give them this pill the vet gave us that fights the ticks and the fleas. And I found a little tick on me the other day, a tiny little thing. It probably picked it up in the yard, and he didn't get where he was gorged with blood or anything. It was so small, it was trying to get through my skin and didn't succeed. He just fell right off. I didn't have to pull him out. He just came right off. So I picked him up. And I kept them tight, and I put them under the sink and ran the water, and sent them on a journey in the sewers. And I don't know if they lived or died, but that's how I got rid of them. You can't really just squish them so easily if they're not full of blood. If they're full of blood, you can blow their bodies up, but then they leave their pieces in the skin. So I think a good way to do it is get like a lighter or something with tremendous heat, and put it on them, and then they pull out because they want to get out of there, and then they get it. You could use. I had one back in the early '70s or the mid '70s, and I went camping, and we came back. I had one, and he was gorged with blood on my abdomen, and he probably was there a day or so till I found him. And we got a cigarette. Somebody had a cigarette, or we got one, and I remember that. We put it on there, and he withdrew his claws, decided it was time to leave. Because they don't understand you're putting a cigarette on them. All they understand is, wow, it's hot, I better get out of here, And they shrivel up, they die, they don't do good with that. So it could burn you a little, you gotta be careful. Right? You might also be able to make the guy, the tick, drunk. I was thinking about this. Get some cotton or paper towels, and if you have some high octane alcohol, like 80 proof or higher, pour it on a paper towel and put the paper towel over him with it sopping wet, and just keep it there for a while. And that's got to irritate his skin and got to intoxicate him, and he's going to want to get out of there. So he might withdraw, I think. I never tried it, but it was just something I was thinking about. But I know the heat works. You got to have the right heat. Using a lighter is probably dangerous to yourself. And, I guess the best thing is to get a cigarette or something like a cigarette and hold it on there. And that would get rid of it. I don't know how you get a cigarette. You go to the store and say, I want a cigarette. You got to buy a pack. And I don't know, $8, $10, something like that. You can probably go someplace and buy a cheap cigar for much less than that. It would work too, I guess. But anyway, since it only happened once with a little tick, I'm not too bent out of shape. This year is very bad for pestilence in Israel for the pets. It's not good. might have something to do with the heat. The mommy dog gets them. Becca, my wife, pulls them off. Oh. Now I have the volume turned up all the way now. So Russia and Ukraine are at it constantly, knocking each other's lights out. Ukraine is now going to set up a factory or factories in different locations inside Ukraine manufacturing drones. I expect that the manufactures, I think, up to 6 different kinds of drones. So, I mean, in a nutshell, what I know is you have small surveillance drones or reconnaissance drones. They're usually small things and they're rather quiet, and they have, like, I guess, a battery, a transmitter, and a camera, and they send images. That's what they do. And they're hard to detect and hard to shoot down because they're probably running on an electric motor, and they're quiet, and they're, cheap. They're probably more or less civilian drones modified. Then they have kamikaze or suicide drones where the drone carries a modest amount of explosives. It can't carry much, maybe 2 kilos or 3 or 1 kilo, something like that. Not a lot of explosives, but enough to be ugly. And they drive it into a target and blow it up. I'm smelling some stuff in the house. I need to go take a look what I'm smelling. My wife's not here. I want to make sure everything's okay. I'll be right back. I'm smelling food. She has some sort of slow electric crock pot thing cooking very slowly. And that was all she's had. So I don't think it's anything that's going to be risky. That's what I was smelling. I believe some kind of stew or something in there. I don't know. She left. She had to run to Jerusalem. Being old people, we can get a round trip ticket from the house. There's a bus that stops right in front of the house, basically, and take that bus, a few feet from the house, I don't know, like a 20-second walk, maybe, and get a bus to Tiberias and then get to Jerusalem direct from Tiberias. And the round trip is 18 shekels. Which, what does 18 shekels mean in dollars? I'll put it on a calculator. 18. It's like $5, and it also lets you use the light rail. That's an electric streetcar on ground level that runs on tracks. It's right on the ground. It's not elevated or under the ground. It's exactly on the ground, right where the cars are. And you got unlimited use of those. And you have the bus going back and forth. So it's not a really expensive trip. And she likes to get out of the house and go down there. So she's going to see somebody, and she enjoys it. And these things are air conditioned, and Jerusalem is cooler than the rest of Israel. Of course, it's at 2,500 foot altitude, so it'll be maybe as much as 10 degrees cooler. So if we're 95, they'll be 85. So it's not as hot. The problem is in the winter, you get snow. I was there with waist-high snow once. And getting this much snow, which is enough to make you miserable, is not unusual. So while the sunshine here stinks in the summer, you don't have to get up in the morning and shovel it. Anyway, so Ukraine is going into drone manufacturing, and they're going to, did they get help from America and Great Britain? And I don't know. Do I think they got help? Maybe from Israel even? Yes. Setting up the production. I think they needed help in that area, I would think. So they're going to turn out a bunch of drones, and they're going to keep on pressing attacks in Russia with the drones. And just trying to see what's going on in my leg. It's kind of weird, as I got old, the hair on my legs and chest was gone. And I started with the patches, and the hair's growing back again. Weird. So I'll do something on Telegram about the patches and explain it. And Twitter maybe as well. If you're interested, I'll explain what that is. Over there on Telegram is the best place. So anyway, they need a lot of drones to do this because they need to swarm attack the Russians. The Russians do have defenses. So the Russians claim that they shoot down a lot of drones, but some get through. I don't know how true that is. I really don't know one way or the other. Syria says the same thing, and I don't believe Syria at all. But with Russia, I don't know. Syria uses the Panther S-2 against our aircraft, not so much drones, but sometimes drones. And they don't really do very well shooting them down at all. So the same missile systems are used by Russia. Now maybe Russia has better radar with them or better this, I don't know. It's hard for me to tell you, or for anybody, well for me, to understand what really happened. Russia will say they sent 17 drones in and 2 penetrated or 1, and Ukraine doesn't really comment, but I think they did say they sent a bunch in. So, if Ukraine really wants to give Moscow a beating, instead of 14 or 17 drones, send 30 or 40. So then they'll have 2 or 3 drones get in, and that'll be horrifying. So in other words, people will walk around in Moscow eating their ice cream in the summer, wearing sandals and shorts, and enjoying themselves, and then boom, a drone hits a building, a big explosion, flames, pieces of the building fall down, people are panicking, sirens are going off, ambulances, police, military, all this stuff, right? And now, what happens if it happens by 3? So in other words, the drones come in and boom, this building blows up, this building blows up, another building blows up, right, in Moscow. Within 1 minute of each other, people are going to go into panic. And that's the idea. Ukraine wants the Russian people to be in pain, scared, and not knowing what to do. Do I personally think that this is going to get the Russian people motivated to support Putin and push against Ukraine harder? I don't think the Russian people are going to do that. I think the Russian people want to live there without sanctions. They don't have much desire to go get killed on the battlefield with in some other country. They probably would be very peeved if somebody invaded their country, and they would probably get a lot more motivated and interested in supporting Putin and his regime if they were being invaded. Now, having all these sanctions placed against them is making them very resentful towards America and her allies, NATO, of course. But that's not the same exact thing as being invaded militaristically, where the soldiers are going to go into the apartments and search the apartments and, you know, cancel the Russian money and set up checkpoints and confiscate weapons, and, you know, this is different. So, what are you guys doing? I'm talking to the daughters. So I think they're just eating, they're banging something on a water ball or a food ball. So, this is a major thing that Ukraine's doing, and what I suspect is they're going to generate, probably try to get thousands of drones, hundreds for sure, and they're going to probably use these drones to constantly take out Russian radar, which drives ground-to-air defenses. In other words, the radar that's used to shoot down anything flying, drones, planes, helicopters, you name it. It flies, they try to shoot it down. That's what all the countries do, and it's radar-driven. And the radar picks up the location of the bogey, you know, whatever's flying in their country, tracks it, aims, and then they aim the missile at it, and the missile communicates with the radar, changes course, tracks it, hits it, blows it up, either direct hit or proximity explosion, and the shrapnel takes it down. Both are quite effective. The shrapnel effect tends to be a little bit easier because you don't have to be that precise. You could probably get within 25 or 40 feet of the thing, and it blows up, and all you need is a couple of pieces of shrapnel to hit the missile. I have never heard of a missile that's armored. In other words, where they're putting 3/8 inch thick, you know, heavy steel in there to stop the shrapnel, which it would do. Probably a 1/4 inch of, you know, hardened steel plate would stop the shrapnel. You know, shrapnel doesn't penetrate well like a bullet. A bullet's spinning, it's got a point. Shrapnel is odd shaped, the side of it could hit it. You know, it's not hard to stop shrapnel. You can get these shrapnel vests, like which they used in Vietnam, and it would stop shrapnel, but it wouldn't stop bullets. It wasn't a bullet-resistant vest. In the Vietnam era, there was not a lot of bullet-resistance equipment running around. Maybe some of the special forces or the spooks, the spies, had it, but it wasn't common. Does an armored vest, a bulletproof vest, stop shrapnel? Yes, very effectively. But shrapnel vest, flak vest is what they call it, doesn't stop bullets. or it might stop some kind of low speed, bullet, maybe a 22 short or a 25 pistol bullet or something like that. But generally, it's not gonna stop any rifle bullet that I know of. So. What's going on is this is going to take out the radar, and the inactive radar is they're going to open. They're not going to try to take out every radar in Russia. They're going to try to open up a corridor. They'll use surveillance equipment, drones and stuff like that, and boots on the ground spies to see where the radar is. Now, radar goes hundreds and hundreds of miles, so they're not going to have radar every 10 miles, like a cell phone tower. That's absurd. It's going to be not a lot. And they'll try to send the drones into the radar to take them out. And they'll use reconnaissance drones to see how well they did, and or boots on the ground spies, which can have binoculars, telescopes, things like that. They could be, miles away. If they have, 12 power binoculars, they could be quite a distance away and see if the radar was destroyed. Like I'm talking maybe as much as 3 miles or 5 miles even, depending if they get elevation. The radar things are big. They're not like a satellite dish on your balcony. They're huge, size of the side of a barn or something. They're big. You can see if they got hit. So if they hit the radar, or they could hit the generators that supply the electricity to the radar, or even the power lines usually the generators are right near the radar. Then they know that the corridor is open and the planes can come in, the F-16s, and the other equivalent type, sort of equivalent, jets they're getting from other NATO countries. I figure they're going to have between 200 and 300 jets. And the pilots are already in training. And the training is probably 4 to 6 weeks, because they're taking pilots that already know how to fly a military jet. And they're just certifying them on these different planes. So you might see, as early as the end of this month, pilots flying jets, Ukrainian pilots flying jets, okay? Or in September, maybe mid-September, something like that. And they are going to use the drones to blow the radar out, and then the jets can fly in, and they can start, instead of running around with, 2-3 kilo explosives on a drone, or maybe they could get a big, they got big drones that might have 30, 40 pound, 50 pound bombs or something like that. But I don't know if they're going to use those or if they're going to get in easily. But they're probably going to drop 250 to 500 pound bombs from the F-16s. And the devastation and impact from those is massive. Now, I don't think Ukraine's going to start out and drop bombs on apartment houses and stuff like that. They probably like to, because Russia is shooting missiles into apartment houses. But I think that NATO would scream bloody murder if they do that. But dropping it on military and industrial targets would be definitely allowed. So what would they target? Well, perhaps bridges, which might hurt some civilians. That'll get NATO mad, but not that mad. Bridges to inconvenience transportation of merchandise around Russia. Trains to stop the transfer of tanks and equipment to the front lines of Ukraine, so they can build the train tracks up, train bridges, trains themselves, military ammo dumps, factories that make weapons, missile factories, missile storage, heavy equipment storage. You know, you drop a 500 or a 250-pound bomb on a tank, it doesn't hold up. I mean, it could have all kinds of, you know, armor on it, reactive armor, this and that. The tank's going to be a piece of junk if it's anywhere near one of these things. You know, artillery shells, the way they make them today, will usually kill in open area, okay? They'll usually kill the soldiers within about 150 feet, which is like, I don't know, you know, not that great a distance. That's in an open area. Now, if it's an area where there's buildings, no. Of course, when the artillery explodes and the shrapnel goes flying, it's going to hit buildings. If they're in a forest with trees, same thing. It's going to hit, the shrapnel's going to hit the trees. And the blast may knock trees over, which could kill somebody also. But if you're in an open area, like a field or a desert or something like that, it's going to work that well. Now that's kill. It'll have a kill of 150 feet, and the wounding will go out to about 250 feet. Okay? Now these artillery shells with multiple warheads, they can be even worse than that. So this is a prime example of the evolution of the weapons since World War II has made them much, much more effective. Much, much more. I'm not talking nukes, forget that. I'm not talking, you know, chemical and biological. I'm talking just boom, go boom conventional weapons are way more deadly than they were. Now, missiles can carry a good-sized warhead, but missiles are very expensive. You know, artillery shells are not. I mean, maybe America pays, you know, I don't know, $2,000-3,000 an artillery shell. Other countries probably make them for $500-600. You know, the cluster bombs are the ones with the multiple. You know, they also have artillery that has like chlorine gas. They can adapt it to do that. I don't think you're going to see biological weapons getting used. That's like an anthrax and stuff like that, because, you know, it's okay. You got to have an explosion overhead. That's not so easy for most people to concoct an artillery shell to do that. A bomb would be maybe easier, or a missile. And it explodes, and then the anthrax powder or grains goes flying around the place. And if you happen to be out in the street under it, or the wind blows it to you, and you get enough of it on your skin, or you inhale it, or it gets in your eyes, or your mouth, or your nose, or whatever, you're going to have a high probability of getting sick. But they have antibiotics that prevent you from getting sick, or they fight it. You might get a little sick, like Cipro and other antibiotics they use against anthrax. And they don't explode the cloud of anthrax that falls on your skin, and 5 or 10 minutes later you're in the hospital with a high fever, coughing, and it's going to take days till you get that sick. So you could get an antidote. And it doesn't help in the battlefield, because the soldiers could fight for days, and they could fly out pills and injections and inoculate them and give them pills, and they'll never get sick, probably. So that's an expensive, high-tech device that's not that effective. So I don't think you're going to see much going on with that. It had terrorist value, where people would mail anthrax to somebody and hope they touched it and spread it in the office, and that kind of thing. But when you spread it around indoors, it would be more fatal. The other thing you got to understand is that when it's outside, it's going to dissipate. Why? It's not stable. It's, so the heat could wreck it, make it inert. Wind dilute it and spread it all over the place. Moisture will work against it, and so forth. And then if it was winter time and people had a hat on, and they had gloves and shoes and socks and long clothes, and they had no skin being exposed in it, they happened to get caught up in it, it might not even affect them. They have to take their clothes and hose them off or something like that. But it wouldn't, or throw them away, but it wouldn't affect them. It probably wouldn't affect them. It has to get in you, somehow. So that's not a highly efficient thing. Now, chlorine gas is what bums like Bashar Assad in Syria use against civilians and people they don't like, and that is a dangerous thing. And it's not difficult to build it, but it's easy for troops to prevent themselves from that. They need a hazmat type suit that covers their body, and they have to have like a hood on and some kind of face mask that covers their whole face, and they gotta breathe through the face mask around the chlorine gas, and it's going to be around for a while. It's probably not 30 seconds. It may, when an explosion gets into the atmosphere, it's going to depend on what the sun and the wind are doing, but it might be a danger for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, but it's probably not going to be any more than that. So that would be very dangerous to civilians that don't have access to the protective equipment. Will they do that to Israel if big wars break out? Well, probably some jerk will try it, maybe. But what's going to happen is they're going to get it back. Israel, I'm sure, has these kind of weapons, and they'll give it back to them. Will that stop them? No, they don't care about their civilians. The whole thing with these people, with these jihadist warriors, is war. Now what we're seeing Hamas do in Gaza is incredible. I'm shocked to see this. They're putting electric meters in the civilian houses, and they're doing meter reading and charging them for the electricity. Now, I don't know where they get the electricity. They have generators, and I think they get the fuel from somebody. I don't know what it be. Israel used to provide them the electricity. Israel with Netanyahu could be definitely dumb enough to keep doing it. And now they're collecting money from the people for that. So the people are protesting against Hamas in Gaza, and of course Hamas is retaliating against them harshly. They have a lot of economic difficulties in Gaza due to Hamas. Hamas drains the budget. They have about 35,000, I think, something like that, so-called soldiers. And they got to pay these guys, or these guys aren't going to be active in their movement. So these guys are getting a paycheck. Now, they're not giving these guys, like the equivalent in America of $150,000 a year or anything like that. They're giving them enough money so their refrigerator's full, the kids got clothes, they can pay their bills. That's the kind of money I believe they're giving them, not, which is saying something in Gaza. And then there's also very rich, wealthy people in Gaza. There's a number of mansions in Gaza. Gaza has amusement parks, decent shopping malls, water slide parks, impressive. Okay, big houses, stuff like that. So Gaza has a lot of poor people, and it doesn't have a lot of rich people, but it has rich people. And, the whole gamut. But the people in general are being oppressed by Hamas. Now, Hamas is getting funded by somebody. The guys that are in Hamas don't have degrees in, architecture and computer engineering and, stuff like that, okay? So they're basically thugs, and they're getting money from other Muslim states, apparently, and that's what they're running with, but they also need more money to make their salary, and so they're getting, they're now trying to tax the people and charge them for the electricity and stuff like that. So I don't know where Gaza gets the gasoline. See, Israel doesn't tell us these things. Where do they get gasoline? They don't have the $3 tax on gasoline that we have in Israel. So they're paying less for gasoline. How many stolen cars from Israel there in Gaza? A lot. What are they selling for? Well, a car that costs 150,000 shekels in Israel, they'll sell for 20, 30,000 shekels stolen. What are the Hamas police going to do? Say, oh, you don't have any registration for this? This is a stolen car. I'm returning the car to Israel. Are you kidding me? They don't. They don't buy insurance for their cars, and they don't buy registration and license plates that I know of. Maybe they do have license plates. I don't know. But they don't care if they have a stolen car from Israel. They steal some other guy's car in Gaza, they might care, but not from Israel. So Israel had an epidemic of cars stolen a few years ago under the Netanyahu, the curse of Israel, under his regimes. And it was very bad. And what they were saying about Netanyahu's government is he didn't care because the insurance would pay to replace the car, and they would buy a new car, and the insurance would buy them a new car, and then have to pay the taxes on the new car again. And that money goes into the coffers of the government. Now, if the government's going to be corrupt, the more tax revenue that goes into the government, the more they could corrupt money away for their own use, for their own benefit, right? So the corrupt governments try to inhale as much tax revenue as they possibly can. This is a universal around the world, because the more that comes into the government coffers, the more can go out to give contracts to friends of theirs that are going to give them kickbacks, for instance, things like this. That's how corrupt governments work. So the car theft problem was going on. Then, like every car you see in Israel now has this thing where you have to put usually a 4-digit code in to allow the car to start. And they have it intricately involved in the wiring of the car's electrical system, so it's not so easy to get it bypassed. And all the rent-a-car they were getting the rent-a-car companies badly, really badly. Well, they can have, why would that be? They'd find some Arab in Israel and they say, we'll give you $500 or $200, go rent a car, and we'll steal it, something like that. So that stopped. These devices curtailed the stolen car thing. Now, are these devices so good they can't be bypassed? No. I had a device like this in America back 45 years ago or 50 years or something like that. It was called the On-Go box. They intricately incorporated into the wiring of the car, and you had a little box and you had dials that spun with 3 or 4 digit number. 3 digits or 4 digits, and you had to get it on the right number, like you had to get it on 1359 or something, right? And then the car would start. And if you kept trying to start the car without the right number, it just wouldn't start. Eventually, it would go away. So that was a pretty good way. I had it in a Corvette. I had an old Corvette. So that was a good way of keeping somebody from, breaking your window and hot wiring. They break the window. One way they do it is they take a spark plug and they put it in a handkerchief or something, and they spin it, smack the window, and it tends to not make a lot of noise. Then they pull the button up, open the car door. Now, if an alarm's going off, like with the On-Go box, and if they opened up the door or anything like that, the alarm would go off. And now they got to work and get the car started while the alarm's going off. The lights are flashing, it's going. making some kind of siren noise or something, right? So now they got a problem. What do? They got a problem. So they don't like it. So they look in the car and they see that on go box and they see a light flashing, which means it's armed, and they don't want to go. They'll go find another car. It's too dangerous. You don't want to break the window and be hanging around there, and a cop rolls by and he hears the thing. He says, "Hey, you, freeze!" Right? And he draws down on you, and now you're going to go to jail for a year or 2 or 3 or something. Like. If you got a lot of priors, you might go to jail for 8 or 10 years. So they wouldn't do it. But these devices in Israel don't normally make the sirens go off. It just you can't start the car. Now they could tow the car, but in Israel, the cops are going to look at that a little suspiciously, and they could get caught easily. So right now, there's not a lot of car theft problems, and they don't break into cars very much or any of this. You just don't see or hear of it. Now, when you drive your car around the West Bank, they have a propensity to throw rocks at the cars. They could throw Molotovs and stuff like that. So it's a little bit dangerous. I see people that buy, SUVs, but, rugged SUVs, right? And the ones that look like more like military vehicles. And they put around the windows of the car metal mesh shaped like this, a diamond shape. You can see through it. It's not diamond hard plate, it's see-through, and it's probably an eighth or a quarter of an inch, probably a quarter of an inch thick. Not an armored steel, some sort of not expensive steel, and they got it around all the side windows and around the windshield and the rear windshield. And there's a way for the windshield, you could lower it onto the hood of the car and put it in place, and then you could see out from the hood better, and then when you get into territories, you put that up. So when they throw the rocks at the car, it just bounces off the car. It doesn't have any effect. It's not going to be effective against bullets. It's just to stop rocks, Molotovs, things like that. Molotov would just bounce off, but it may cause flame on the car because the liquid gets on the car with the flame. But it's really to stop rocks. So a big thing is they'll go to elevation with a rock, like an overpass or a building, 3, 4, 5-story building. And these rocks are about like this. So the rocks are going to weigh, 5 to maybe as much as 8 or 9 pounds or something. They'll drop them off a height, and they try to get it into the windshield, and then it goes and hits the people inside the car because of the momentum. And it could kill children in the front seat or adults and hurt them when they try to. So it just, all it does is it hits the cage around the car, and it just bounces off. Nothing happens. Now, they could still throw a rock at the door and dent the door and scratch the paint. Most of these people probably not fix it. And, do things like that, but it doesn't get into the people inside the car. It also helps the people if they're trying to do a lynching attack, which is where they'll go break the windows, rip you out of the car, and just start beating you, and raping the women, and there's nothing left, and you die. Well, you have the doors locked, and they're not going to be able to open the doors, and they can't break the windows. There's not much they can do, and you just sit there and you hopefully drive away, and then calling for help with your cell phone, and you will get help. The military will come. And they can't, if they barricade you, they're not easily going to get you out of there. How? They can't break the glass and pull the button up. They could get tools and try to, pry your door open. Good luck with that. And most of these people in there would have a gun. a pistol, at least one pistol in the car. So they got another problem, you know. The, they might have a shooting flap, although I think they stopped these 20 years ago. They used to have a thing where they'd have like, a half-inch steel, and you could slide it away inside the car, and you'd have a porthole, and you could shoot out. But they stopped that, I think, because people could, if you could shoot out, they could shoot in. So I don't think they make those anymore. I haven't heard of them in probably a good 20 years. It was innovative. Well, I don't think many people in Israel would have army cars for the West Bank, but the government does. So the armored cars, if they throw a nice 6-7 pound rock at you from 40 feet, it's going to make shatter lines in the glass, which is very expensive. And it's not going to go in the car, but it's going to cost you a lot of money to fix it. Now, if you were a private owner of an armored car, the government would probably pay for that because it would be considered terrorism, and they'd probably pay to fix it. But the armored cars are so expensive. In a country without the taxes and the high expense, it'll cost you to armor a car to the level of stopping a 12-gauge shotgun, 44 Magnum, 45, 9mm, 10mm, the conventional pistol rounds. It's going to cost you about, I'm guessing, $25,000 or so. But in Israel, that'd probably be about $35,000, $40,000. And that doesn't stop the normal AK-47s that they like. So an AK-47, to armor that, probably $50,000, $60,000 in Israel. And I had armored cars. I had two of them. One I had just the glass armored. It was a special sheet of plastic they applied to the car windows, all of them. And the doors would still be just the regular doors, although the windows come down about that much in the door. So it does give you some protection. If you're worried about them shooting through the doors, you have pockets in the doors. You could get bulletproof vest and stick it in that pocket and tape it with duct tape onto the side of it. And that would help. It would probably stop most of the handgun rounds. Because going through the metal of the door is going to reduce the velocity a lot. And if they're using hollow points, it's going to make the thing mushroom and expand, and it's not going to penetrate too much. But it's not going to do much good with the rifle. To stop rifles, you have to put quarter-inch, armored steel plate, and that's another story. So that would stop people from breaking the windows, yanking you out of the car, shooting at you through the window and stuff like that. The carjackers, which is really what this was designed to affect, and the robbers are normally not going to try to shoot you through the door. They'll try to shoot you through the window. Now, whenever I was in the car, there would always be a gun in the car, at least one gun, whoever was there, always. So they got to worry about you shooting back. In other words, you can't shoot them through the window, but you could show them the gun and they don't know that, and then they're not going to stick around. That's the end of it. You take the gun out and start pointing it at them from inside the car, I guarantee you that's the end of the carjacking. Unless you're a target and there's a crew of 8 or 10 people and they pull dump trucks in front of you and behind you to block you in, then it's not over. But that's a sophisticated cartel spending a lot of time and money and planning getting somebody in. That wouldn't be me, This was guarding against casual jackasses that just want to buy a bag of heroin and rob whoever they can. And they can't do much with you there. They're going to run away. They're just looking for an easy mark. Their goal is to get a bag of heroin, go back in the house, get a big bottle, supersized me strawberry soda with some king-size bag of Doritos or something, and just sit around and shoot up, and that's what they want to do. They get a good score, and then they can sit home and shoot up for 2 or 3 days, and then go out and do it again. It's a pointless life. The other car I had was full armored, for real. It had the panels inside the doors and the body, and it had all the glass changed for special armored glass. That was ordered, special cut, and put in. So that would take a serious gunfight, but it wasn't set up to take the rifles. We doubled up the soft armor in the car walls and the sides and all that. But it still would be iffy if it could stop the rifle. Maybe it would stop it, and maybe it wouldn't. Probably not, but maybe, or it would slow it down. And the injury wouldn't be that severe, but probably that wouldn't mean much. So if you want to armor a car to stop an AK-47 or an AR-15, you gotta spend a lot of money. The glass is going to be really thick, and the windows, they don't want you to put the windows down when you do a car like that. If you do, you got to get special window lift motors that are like this big, and they have them, and they let you bring it down maybe 2 to 3 inches for fresh air. But they don't like it because you may not get it back up, and regular electric windows are going to go up like, well, this window is not going to go up like this, going to go slow because it's such a heavy window. And they do that, and then you would probably get it with the armored steel plate, and they put panels in the roof so people can't shoot down from the roof. Now, you don't have to do that. You can save money and wait and say, no, I'm not worried about the roof. This is rather unlikely for somebody to jump on the running boards. You're usually going to do this with an SUV. To jump on the running boards and start shooting down into the car is a little bit far-fetched. So you could save yourself hundreds of pounds by not doing that. Okay. You do want the back gate or the back door of the SUV armored because people could be shooting at you when you're running away. So that's rather important, right? They armor the battery. They put armor around the battery. They put it around the radiator so they can't break your radiator, and your radiator's gonna, so you got problems with that. How do you get the air in there? They have ways to do it. Then they change the springs and the shock absorbers on the car, and they probably bring it up an inch or two. Not much, just a little bit. And now you've got a car your car is very heavy, and they get rid of the tires. You got to have run flat tires that'll run flat with this very heavy car. You might have put 750 pounds on the car. So you got to buy these. They got 2-ply, 4-ply tires. You're getting 8 or 10-ply tires, very expensive tires, where the walls are very strong. So even they shoot bullets in there, you're still going to be able to drive a while on the tire. But you're not looking to drive 25 miles, which you might actually be able to do. You're looking to drive 2 or 3 miles at most to get out of there, right? And your mileage is going to go down by half, probably. Your tire wear is going to be triple quick or double quick. Your brakes are going to go double quick, and you got to be very careful about your drive shaft. You may need to change it every couple of years. A good idea would be to get rid of the car after 2 years, or the most 3 years. Get rid of it. You don't want to keep the car around because it's just going to wear the car out. It just knocks the daylights out of the car. And I didn't do the car for rifle. The car I did was just for pistol. A little bit of protection from rifle, but they're building cars now that will protect against 50 caliber bullets, armor piercing even. So your glass on the side windows is probably 3 to 4 inches, and on the windshield probably an extra inch, 4 or 5 inches. And you're not using quarter-inch steel plate. You're probably using half-inch steel plate, armored steel, heavy, cold-rolled steel. You may need more than half-inch. You may need 5/8. You probably have 5/8. That'd probably stop the 50 calibers. It may not, but it's, again, who's going to use a 50 caliber against you? This is a serious cartel move, okay? And what they'll do to you is, again, they'll pull some kind of bus or truck in front of you, then from the side. They'll have 12, 15 people working on this with 6 cars, maybe 25 people. So you're driving and a bus just shoots out in front of you, or it may shoot out in front of the first 2 or 3 cars in front of you and blocks the street. Then the guy in the bus shuts the motor off and runs away. Now that's the end of you moving. Now you're going to try to back up out of there. Well, you're going to see that right behind you, or 2, 3, 4 cars behind you, another bus or a truck came out and blocked the street. And they're going to do it where there's nowhere to go on the sides. Now you're stuck. So they could start shooting at you, and you have an armored car that's going to stop rifle bullets and armor-piercing bullets. So the idea then is to shoot so many bullets into a window that the window gives. So if you sit there and you have an AK-47 with a 40-round clip, by the time you get to 12 or 15 or 20 rounds of bullets, the window's going to collapse. Or 40, a 40-round clip, it'll collapse. It takes you no more than 5 seconds to drop a 40-round clip, probably 3 seconds to drop a 40-round clip, 3.5, into a window with an AK-47. So they stand back 15, 20 feet. They just go, and that's it. And then they got no window there, and they just tell you, get out of the car, or we're going to shoot you. So the other approach they came up with was the 50 calibers. They walk over to the car and they point the big Barrett 50 caliber, which has, I think, a 5-round clip or something, 10-round clip. They walk over to the car and they point it at him and they tell him, get out of the car, we're going to shoot you in the car. And they can. So the armor is not really going to do you that much good. Now let's say you're really armored the daylights out of the car, okay, and they can't get you, and you had an oxygen supply in the car, okay, so they barricade you, and you got special ramming bumpers you put on the car, but it's not going to help you. What are you going to do? You got 2, 3 cars in front of you, and then you're in there, and you got an air supply. What do they do? They're going to light up your gas tank. They can't, because the cap for the gas tank is locked. Well, okay. So they take a crowbar, boom. No more than 8 or 10 seconds, that little gas tank cover is gone. Then they have a locking gas cap on there, right? So they put a big pipe wrench on there, and now that's off. And then what do? They stuff a rag down your gas, the gas filler pipe, and they light it and they run away. And then what happens? Your car blows up into flames. So, I mean, I can keep telling you stories about this. I lived in other countries, and there's easy ways they can do it. So all this stuff just protects you against jerks. And when you go in the West Bank, it's the same thing. It's going to protect you against jerks that are just, sitting there with an AK-47 or a pistol and shooting at cars at random, yeah, you're armored. It's not going to hurt you. You keep driving, you know, and you're probably never going to get into an encounter where they're going to block you in the front and the rear and then move in on you. But if they do, you'll have a gun and you'll just have to call for help and shoot at them and they'll probably run away. But it's really just to stop you from, jerks. Not if there was an organized effort with a team of 15 or 20 terrorists that targeted you, you were a general or something like that, well, you would be traveling in a caravan where there'd be 3 or 4 SUVs, and there would be a lot of assault weapons in there and a lot of communications equipment. And as soon as something like this started, there'd be a very active firefight. And the terrorists wouldn't be very happy as they started getting shot up. It wouldn't be the same type of thing. They do that in other countries like Colombia or something like that, where they'll have a rich guy that owns a big company. He'll travel with a cavalcade of usually 3 cars plus his car. And they'll buy like all black Ford Suburbans. And he may armor all of them. And you're talking about very wealthy people. And the bad guys don't know which of these cars is him, because they could easily tint the windows very dark in these kind of countries. And they now attacking a caravan like this is very difficult, because the principal could be in the front car, he could be in the rear car, or the middle cars. They don't know which one he's in very easily. If he enters into the car in a garage in a closed space, they're not going to be able to spy and figure out which license plate has him. So it's more difficult to stop somebody like that. Now he's traveling, he's got, 2 bodyguards in each car, so you got 6 bodyguards plus his car, you got 8 bodyguards. The driver is a bodyguard and the passenger, so you got 8. And they're going to all start shooting. Well, nobody wants that. Even if there's 15 or 20 of them, and you got 8 guys shooting at you, it's a problem. Now, what are they shooting with? Normally they just have pistols, but with some big shot like that, they might have other guns in the car. They might have shotguns and things like that. You don't know. Pistols is bad enough because it's close range. So it's a challenge. So the West Bank is a sewer, and a lot of Israelis don't want to live there because they don't want to go through this. They want to just live in I want to get some ice cream. It's so hot tonight. I want to watch TV. I'm going to walk to the store, grab myself some Haagen-Dazs and come back, and get a big, a 1.5-liter bottle of cold soda or juice or cold beer, whatever they want. And they just walk to the store, or the wife will just walk to the store. Or, here in my village, I see kids that are probably 7, 8 years old, and they go to the store during the daytime, and up until twilight, their parents let them go to the store. They ride bikes, walk, whatever, and they buy a cold soda or an ice cream, some candy, stuff like that, right? And they hang around there with the other kids, and they play. No adults, nothing's happening, nobody's snatching the kids, there's no terrorists killing the kids, none of that, And they're not going to have that in the West Bank so easily, You're going to have to be behind a fence where there's cameras, sensors, security guards all the time, then you can have the kids like them. So it's, people don't want that lifestyle in Israel. The ones that do are the Zionists, which are often Ashkenazi, not always. And they wear a knitted kippah, and they wear tzitzit, and they live there, and they carry guns. Pistols and assault weapons. I don't know the latest regulations. It used to be you lived in a community there, and the community would recruit you, you'd get some training, and you took time being an armed guard in the community, patrolling, watching the gate, whatever, right? And you had radio communications to the police and the military. So you could always get help. Help would come pretty quick usually. But 5 minutes is a long time if you're getting shot at. So it's 9 minutes or 11 minutes, it's a very long time. People were bringing dogs with them and patrolling the perimeter, which was usually fenced. Now they have full-time security guards, which are usually ex-military special units, that work there and do the patrols themselves, and then they probably supplement it with volunteer guards. But you could still get guns very easily. It used to be the community had an arsenal, and you could go there and check out a military rifle when you wanted to. So you could get an M1 carbine, which is a darn good gun. I was in the police volunteer unit years ago, and I had one of those. They issued me, and it was a 10-round clip. It was a 110 grain bullet at about 1,900 feet per second, so it would zip through cars. It would go through regular bulletproof vests, and it was quite deadly. It was like a super duper 9mm. When you shot somebody with it, they typically would stay shot. It was twice the weight of a AR-15 bullet, which is normally about 55 grains. This is 110. It didn't go as fast, but it went fast enough to cause hydrostatic shock. It was a good gun. And then you had two 10-round clips in a bandolier on the butt, a canvas thing. So you had 30 rounds, which was pretty good. And you had a weapon, with the butt. You could hit people in the head or smash the instep with a knee or, hit them in the throat. You had ability to fight with that thing as a club. It would go through most of these rinky-dink cars. It was a good gun. So they issued those, and then they generally issued Uzis and M16s, older ones that the military was done with. So a lot of these people, they don't use the Uzis much. You hardly see those now. This is so old, I think they're probably still in circulation, but they use so they could, let's say they want to go someplace and travel, and they could check out an M16 full auto from the Armory. They'd have to be certified on the thing, and they would get 20 or 30 or 40 round clips. They have two. They have one clip in the gun, and the other, they have a metal bracket that keeps the other clip to it on the side. So they would eject the clip, reverse it, shove it back in the gun, charge it, and they're ready to go. So they're running around 80 rounds. That's a lot of rounds. Now if you're going to spray in full auto, it's not a lot of rounds. But if you're going to shoot, single fire, semi-auto, it's a heck of a lot of ammo. So they check that out, and they schlep it around with them when they got to travel, and then they could probably keep it out. Yeah, I think a lot of them have these things permanently, but getting a pistol is very easy for them to do, so they get pistols. So they get a 9mm Glock with 15 rounds in it or something like that, and they carry an extra clip. They usually would carry 2 extra clips. And they so they got their 30 rounds, and they got pretty good protection. And but it's a security problem. There's rock throwing, there's Molotovs. They try to carjack you. They call it a lynching, and beat you to death. You got shooting in cars at random. It's a problem. So a lot of people don't want to live there. Why? They say, what do I want to live here for? And a lot of times, I don't know if it's that way today, but in the old days when you lived in these settlements and you were going to drive through the settlement to go to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or something like that, you would wait at the gate of the settlement, and you had your gun. Frequently you had a pistol, and you put it in between your legs when you were driving, or stick it under your thigh. Or the best way would be to have a reverse holster, so the holster sits here, and you can pull it out like that. or this way, depending on if you're righty or lefty. But Israelis aren't. Contrary to what a lot of people think, Americans are way the heck 3 times more advanced in guns than the Israelis are. Now, there's probably some guys in the Mossad and the Israeli intelligence and commando agencies that are, brute force guys, and they're probably rather advanced in weapons, okay? But I know many American civilians, self-included, that know more about guns than they do. I've talked to them, commandos and stuff like that. They don't know much. Okay? They don't. They know tactics. Are their tactics good? No. Their tactics are excellent. They go on major operations and don't lose anybody. Their latest assault weapon, they're called the Tavor, is a bullpup style .223 assault weapon with a short barrel, and it's a fantastic gun. I mean, I don't think there's any guns running around that are better than that, okay? I don't like the caliber that much, but it's a superb gun. It's a super excellent gun. So they make good guns, But the Americans, you see, they're familiar with the .223, the 30 caliber machine gun, the 7.62. They're familiar with the 50 cal, and they're familiar with 9mm pistols and a few of those, Glock and a few. That's it. Do they understand what a .454 Casull will do? They don't even know what it is. The commandos, they wouldn't know what it is. Okay? They don't know. Do they know what a 45 Winchester Magnum is? They don't have an idea. They don't have a clue. Okay, 50 caliber Smith & Wesson and a 500 Smith & Wesson. What would that do? They don't know. They don't have any clue. They don't understand that some of these guns, you can put lightweight bullets in there that are going to go at incredible speeds, that are going to rip through car doors, bulletproof vests, normal body armor for cars, and they don't know. They don't know anything. They really don't. I'm going to take a break from them. They think they know everything. They don't. And their tactics, in some regard, are inferior too. I've seen them. I was in the police as a reserve. I know what they do. The Israelis carry their guns like the police without a round in the chamber because they're afraid of accidents. And that adds a full second to your action plan. And that is a long time when someone's trying to shoot you or someone else. That's a long time. So, they're good. But the Americans have such sophisticated weapons as civilians. I know, I was a gun nut years ago and I know what they have. I know how they think. I went to gun training courses for civilians that are superior to the government courses. They're excellent. So Ukraine and Russia are going to. I think the thing is going to change, and I think Ukraine may win. There's rumors of what's the right word? A putsch, a purge, a revolution in Russia. I'm not giving it a lot of credence. I think Putin is, maybe he wasn't dug in too tight, but I'd say probably a good 9 or 10 months ago he got himself set up pretty strong. You're not going to get Putin. NATO could get him at a great price, but some people in Russia that don't like Putin with pistols and rocks, they won't get near him. It's not going to work. And if you kill Putin, the next one, or if Putin died, let's say he just got sick and died, Medvedev would probably step in. Medvedev would be worse than Putin. And that's the other thing you got to understand. If they kill Putin, the next one could be worse than Putin. More aggressive. We're not going to see this BRICS meeting until August 22nd, so we've got to wait a while, another few weeks. I'm not seeing the American dollar declining much anymore. So, will there be an attack from the 5,000 Wagner mercenaries in Belarus on Poland because they're set up by the Poland border? No. You need 50,000 to hit Poland, maybe 80,000. And that doesn't mean you're going to win. That means you're going to penetrate. It's nowhere near enough. It's a joke. They'd be gone in hours or a day or two. What? And then they don't. What? Okay, you need air support. You need missiles. You need helicopters. You need armor. You need all this stuff that they don't have to penetrate into Poland. And no 5,000 people. You'd need massively more than that probably $250,000 for a serious incursion into Poland, really. And once you step foot in Poland, the military forces from Belarus step foot in Poland, it's NATO Article 5, all for one for all. The Three Musketeers clause. So what are they doing? They're digging in. They're entrenching themselves by the border. What are they trying to do? They're trying to stop an incursion from Poland or NATO. And how would you do that? That's easily done with 5,000 people. Hitler did it protecting beaches from invasions, and it was ugly trying to break through what Hitler set up. And they're doing that. They're strengthening their entrenchments. So you build bunkers is one way to do it, right? Hitler was building them 6-8 feet thick. Heavy concrete bunkers, they call them pillboxes, near the coast. They were set back maybe several hundred yards. Usually they put them up on elevation, if there was elevation available, to make it much harder for ground troops to overrun them, because they have to come up, climb a 200-300 foot high or 400 or 500 foot high mountain or ridge. And that makes using equipment harder, and you have to walk and run. And what was in these pillboxes was artillery. Now the pillbox was a good sized thing. It had rooms in there, and what they had is they had an ability for the guys to sleep on bunks in this pillbox. Now when there was no enemy around, they could keep the doors and everything open and cook outside and stuff like that. But if there was an invasion, they could sleep in there, and they were able to cook in there. And they had the artillery piece sticking out, and they probably kept 100 or 200 rounds of ammo in there or more. It was a big thing. It had rooms, big, thick, heavy concrete walls, and much of the bunker was sunk down into the ground, so it had a low profile sticking up. And they had, windows that were permanently open, holes in the thing. They probably had a way to shut them with some kind of shutter, a metal shutter or something, maybe not. But they had 1 or 2 machine guns in there to stop them from being overrun. And the Germans had these 88 machine guns. They were pretty good machine guns. They were, an anti-personnel machine gun, not for shooting up vehicles, And they killed a lot of Allied soldiers with these. They were good guns. And they trained them well, so they'd be sitting there. They'd probably have 5,000-10,000 rounds of ammo. And when an invasion came, as the boats were coming to drop the soldiers on shore, they would shoot the boats with artillery, attempting to get them. If they could, they could. But I think they realized pretty early on that they weren't hitting these LST, these landing boats that were moving at 20, 30 knots in the water with the waves. So they waited till they got to the shore, and they started unloading, and then they started dropping artillery on the troops while they were unloading. So the troops had to find cover, so they had to get out of the water and get someplace on the beach behind something. But they were still shooting at them with artillery when they were on the beach, and they were also trying to pick them off with these 88 machine guns, which was a squad machine gun. It was on a bipod, and it would probably easily go a mile or something like that, It was probably not useful at a mile. It was probably useful at maybe 500 yards, something like that. And they would spray the beach with these machine guns from these bunkers and shoot artillery at them. And the guys in the pillboxes were scared. They didn't want to get overrun. So they tried their darndest, because they felt they had a feasible chance of deterring the invasion, and then the troops would try to leave and go back to the boats. They couldn't make it. Okay, but the American and the Allied navies weren't about to retrieve them. They were going to give them more air support, more cannon support, artillery support from the ships at sea, and heavy equipment. And, they would float tanks onto the shore and armored personnel carriers, and the guys would be in the tanks and drive off the shuttlecraft that lands them onto the beach inside a tank or an armored vehicle, and the machine guns the bullets would just bounce off it. So they had to hit it with the artillery, which is not so easy. So these Germans were fighting for their lives, and then the Americans had flamethrowers. And they would try to get close to the pillbox, staying out of the line of fire of the machine gun. The artillery was no good at a close distance. And they probably could get, even at 100 feet, or 50 feet anyway, spray, probably 50 feet or maybe less, they could spray that flamethrower, and the flames would go through the openings in the pillbox and burn the guys up inside, and they would start running out of the pillbox to get out of there and fall back. And sometimes the Allied soldiers would shoot them, and other times they would fall back to another more interior position. So that's the type of thing that the Wagner people are going to do. They're going to use some sort of dug-in trenches or embankments or something, and they're going to try to probably set up landmines, artillery, machine guns, concertina wire, and barbed wire, and these big metal obstacles to stop tanks, and just sit there and try to defend Belarus enough for Russia to get over there and save the day. That's all they're doing. They can't possibly aggressively attack the Polish government with 5,000 mercenaries. It's nonsense. So they're not there offensively, they're there defensively. So Putin's scared to attack NATO, but that's the only way Putin has a chance. But then he has to fight NATO, and does Putin have a chance to fight NATO? I don't think so. What would they want to do with Russia? Well, they would want to divide it like they did Germany, but more so. So different countries would grab a piece of Russia. Romania would get a piece, Poland, Ukraine would definitely get some land, I guess, to make up for what happened. And they would rip Russia up into different pieces, and these countries would attempt to incorporate the piece of Russia they got into their own country. And that's how it would go. And it would divide Russia up. Now, what would happen with the oligarchs' money in the different countries? Well, if the money's in other currencies or gold, it would be usefully confiscated. If the money's kept in Russian rubles, the ruble would be worthless, so it wouldn't mean anything. The yachts and the mansions they keep, probably auction them, and then the money would just be kept and stuff like that. The only chance that I see that Russia has is to work this in conjunction with China and to a small extent Iran and maybe Venezuela, and to a substantial extent North Korea. And Russia would, if Russia did manage to win this way, I think it would be by the skin of their teeth, and Russia would be severely damaged, extremely damaged. all of it. Lots of dead civilians, like what are we talking about? 10, 20 million, 5 million, huge deaths. It would be a real mess. And that's if they won. That's if they won. NATO, when you add NATO up, it's quite powerful. Now, many of the members of NATO are not quite powerful, but when you put the cumulative, the collective resources together, it dwarfs what Russia's capable of. So none of these countries really had a lot of big resources. Well, some did, like France and UK for sure, and Germany to somewhat, and Italy maybe. But when you add all their resources together, then they, I would say exceed Russia in when you look at the quality of their equipment. That's the big difference. You got to remember, soldiers on the battlefield with a few hand grenades and some assault rifles and a helmet and a canteen and a bayonet is a joke today. The war's about aircraft, missiles, drones, naval vessels, submarines, bombs. It's not about shooting bullets. You're not going to get anywhere shooting bullets. So Russia doesn't have any good way to go right now. NATO and America understand that, and that's why they want to try to bust Russia out without having a bloody bath. Then they'll divide it. Are they close to busting Russia out? Yeah, they're not doing so bad. They're not doing that bad at all. I'm checking the temperature with the dogs. Now I got time. It's 88. They can stay out there a while. So they can bust them out, and they're doing it with the sanctions, and that's why Russia's trying to do BRICS. But they're talking. They got anywhere from 40 to 70 countries that want to apply to BRICS. But in reality, they're saying they may admit 4 during their August 22nd to 24th meeting, just 4. That's what they're saying. So they're not going to let 40 people in. So, the BRICS is a slow-moving train. It's not going to bail them out. They're deceiving themselves if they think it is. They're also talking now of a regular currency, like what you have in your wallet and your purse, right? Dollar bills, 5, 10s, 20s. Okay. That's currency. The gold-backed thing they're talking about is a trading currency. That's going to be from, international transactions of a large order. The regular currency is currency, and they're talking about tying that to a basket of currencies. So they'll take the currencies from maybe 6 different countries and put it together and form their own BRICS currency, and use that for regular money and the different countries. And I guess that I don't know exactly what their plan is, but it's not a trading currency. Trading currency is gold back, and it's going to be flawed, and they're going to pay a bad price for that, because the other countries can manipulate the price of gold by hundreds of dollars in a week. So if you could convince these BRIC countries to put the gold in China or Moscow in a vault in some BRICS development bank, now you got gold, and it's worth, let's say, $2,500 an ounce at the time, right? Because when they start putting gold in, gold's going to go up in value. So let's say it goes to $2,500. I don't know. I really don't know. Let's just guess it does. Maybe. All right. So now the other countries start trying to run the price of gold down, which they can do, and gold goes down to $1,800. So their reserves are no good anymore. They have to add more gold to be able to control enough currency, trading currency, for them to do what they need to do. So they're all screwed up. And it's just difficult. it's, I don't know how they're going to do this. I think it's going to fail myself. And I think the United States is extremely mad at them over this. And they're going to take action. Now, in the Pacific, see, what we're seeing is all these countries are having practice exercises in the area they think a war is going to come. See, that's a war drum. That's a, like going back to the old Tarzan movie, Tarzan, Johnny Weissmuller goes to Cheetah the chimpanzee and tells him to go back and tell Jane that he hears the war drums and she should come to him or run away or stay safe in the tree or whatever. So Cheetah goes, and he goes and swings on the vines and goes back to the tree house, and Jane is scantily clad there and tells Jane, Marina Sullivan, that, Cheetah talks to humans, of course. No other animal does, but Tarzan's, and tells her that there's war drums and stuff like that, And then Johnny Weissmuller will be swinging around on the trees. And you know how stupid that is, vines, and you jump from one vine to another, you haven't tested it, and you're 60 feet up, boom, you fall down, you're dead. It's so stupid. How could you live in there when they got old? Johnny, well, it's Tarzan and Jane, and boy, they're living there. Tarzan's, 30 years old? Okay, 25 years later, he's 55 years old. You think he's going to be wrestling lions and alligators and swinging on vines? Or let's say he's 65, And what did Jane do in them? What are they going to do? Well, they got to leave, or they got to take Boy with them, who's got his own wife and kids, and it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just. But they made so many Tarzan movies. Jock Mahoney made them. Johnny Weissmuller. They had about 5 guys making Tarzan movies. John Wayne never did it. But they had a good 4 or 5 pretty famous actors doing Tarzan. And then they had TV shows, I think, I'm not sure, based on Tarzan, I'm not sure. And then they had modern movies based on Tarzan, and he calls the animals listen to him. It's just this nonsense, If the animals listen to him, then why did the lions attack him, and why did the alligators attack him? Well, they don't listen to him. Oh, really? It's silly, it's just, anyway, as a kids liked it, right along with Davy Crockett, So, I think what we're looking for now is waiting for, let's call it a mistake to these people, or appear as a mistake, where something happens to one country but from another, and the country overreacts, and then it throws us into a war, and then you're into a big war. Like China is flying into Taiwan, and something gets spooky, and a Taiwan fighter jet fires a rocket and blows up the Chinese fighter jet, and the other fighter jets with the Chinese shoot down the Taiwan guy, shoots back, and now the anti-ship missiles are flying, the artillery's going. You're in a war. Okay? That's what it takes, not much. It doesn't take a lot. It's easy. And when you got tension so high and they're so active, it's not going to take a lot. Like Russia attacked a place in Ukraine that was, I don't know, maybe a few hundred yards away from Romania. So what if something went wrong on that? And if something went wrong is Romania Russia miscalculated a hit Romania, or the Romanian military thought that they were missing and they were shooting at Romania, and they shot back. And then you got a war. See, it doesn't have to be a planned attack. The only way Russia's getting out of this thing is to stop the weapons flow to Ukraine. Now that could be done by having a war against NATO with China on his side, or he could do it himself. But if he doesn't stop that, soon the aircraft are going to be in Ukraine and they're going to be bombing Russia, probably inside Mother Russia. If Putin lets it keep going on, he's going to keep suffering big losses. If he was able to overcome these NATO weapons, he would have done it already. Weapons shortages from giving to Ukraine. You got to understand the NATO countries are constantly manufacturing weapons. They've been giving weapons to Ukraine for a year, more than a year. They've been replenishing. They're making artillery shells, bullets, all this stuff every month. Okay? They'd rather see Ukraine knock Russia's lights out than America and NATO to have to put their own troops together and try to knock Russia's lights out and spend trillions of dollars on equipment and lose lives. So they throw the Ukrainian lives in the fire and they just bring the equipment in. And it's working. It's weakening Russia. Russia's tremendously weaker now. And this is what I see. Now, when is the war going to start? I don't really know. But I know the other things that are going to be going on, like the two witnesses will have to start working openly in Israel. And there'll probably be that tabernacle again that we get back from where Jeremiah hid it in Mount Nebo. And the one that's referred to as Elijah, that witness in Malachi 3, be training the Levites to do the offerings again on a cleansed altar, which they'll usually we would make our own altar. That would be, I expect, a brazen altar, and it's an 8-day process of cleansing it, which is delineated and it was specified in the Bible, and then the Levites would be doing the offerings correctly, and the blessings of the law would come on to Israel. And I assume that would lead to the next temple coming down from heaven, which is not New Jerusalem, but many times I've covered that God puts it here, and you could exactly see those words in Ezekiel 37, the last 3 verses of the chapter. God places or puts the next temple here. But the tabernacle is not the temple, and I think that precedes it. And then we'll have the blessings of the law, and our enemies aren't going to have much of a chance. They'll flee. And it says the United States will be doing bad things to us, and they'll flee from us. And our surrounding neighbors will, at that point, decide they need to attack us and lay siege to us. And before that happens, it appears that they have beat their swords into plowshares because there's no modern weapons. Why would this be? It's complicated. I hope you're staying with me, because in Jeremiah 30, verse 11, we read, associated with the birth pangs directly, that the Lord will annihilate or destroy, but the word would be better said as annihilate, the nations that he dispersed the Israelites into. And that doesn't mean that they're all going to die. It also tells us elsewhere that the nations are going to go into captivity. I assume it's these nations, like what they caused to Israel. They let Israelis live in their country, then they threw them out. It was a universal. They always did it. America never really did it. I mean, at the end, it stopped happening, but the UK did it in the past. France, Portugal, Spain, all that. All right. So, every country he dispersed the Israelites into is going to be destroyed. And I would say that the people living there are going to go into captivity. They're going to go live in other countries. Okay? And those destruction, I believe, is going to come from the wars. And the people are going to, 500-600 million dead people later, or more, maybe 1 or 2 billion dead people, the people are going to be pretty open to the two witnesses suggesting that they, beat their swords into plowshares. They'll go for it, okay? Because it appears that they do. And that's why when you see in Zechariah 12, the horses are made blind and stuff like that, what don't we see? We don't see the missiles, unless you want to tell me the arrows of the missiles. And there's archers. Well, an archer is a guy that draws the bow with a string and fires an arrow. The missile is not an archer. The missile launcher is not the archer, and the missile's not the arrow. It's a little ridiculous to say that. Now that's the word of the Lord, not a dream or a vision where people are going to tell you, well, the prophet didn't know what to call a tank, so he called it a chariot. He didn't know what to call a missile, so he called it an arrow. No, it's the word of the Lord here. And the word of the Lord, Yeshua is the word made flesh. They know very well what these things are. So it appears that the wars, the death and destruction from Jeremiah 30:11 got the nations to beat their swords into plowshares. There's no missiles, there's no planes, there's no bombs, there's no drones, there's no naval artillery, there's no naval missiles. There's none of this going on, okay? They're using horses. It could be that the militaries of these countries just annihilated or destroyed or used up all the resources. Now, what's going to happen in the Pacific? North Korea is going to attack South Korea when the festivities start, when Taiwan and China start going at it. Japan and China will be going at it. North Korea will pick off South Korea. They're going to massively artillery attack it. They have a huge amount of artillery that can go 40 miles, rocket-propelled shells. They're just going to make a row and go down through South Korea, annihilating. They'll drop an artillery shell on every square meter, stuff like that, just annihilate the place until they get to the cities, and then they'll invade, and they'll be fighting back and forth, and there'll be Air Force planes involved, and they're going to eventually run out of artillery shells, missiles, planes, bombs, and then they'll be down to bullets. And Japan will be fighting against China, and China's going to use up their big military resources, as will Japan, as will Taiwan. And then they'll be fighting with bullets, and then the bullets will run out. And you'll have a similar situation in the Pacific. I don't think you see, the war is going to be so different. The destructive capability of the military got to be 5 times greater than World War II or something like that. And they're going to be fighting other countries. Look, North and South Korea, case in point. They both got very deadly weapons, different kinds and this, and but very deadly. The idea South Korea is going to try to do is to destroy North Korea as soon as possible to reduce the damage to South Korea. China goes into Taiwan, and Taiwan's going to throw the kitchen sink, everything they can at the Chinese invaders as quick as they can to stop them from annihilating themselves, from killing the people and their children and families, and to get rid of them. And China is going to be pouring it on Taiwan to get the victory. Now comes Japan. Well, Japan's going to attack China, and then China's going to attack Japan. And they're all going to start using up their missiles and their artillery and their drones and their planes and their tanks, and they're going to run out of fuel, run out of shells. And they're going to use up their equipment, killing each other as soon as they can. They can't drag it out. It's too dangerous. The other side is too deadly. But all the other sides are too deadly. Both sides are too deadly. So the idea is to put in as much destruction to the other side as quick as possible. Not necessarily the civilians, to destroy the military and the assets and weapons of the military. So they're going to go through their weapons so fast, they're going to run out of weapons. Now, it's still going to have cars and trucks and stuff like that. Why we don't see that in Zechariah 12 is probably that stuff doesn't make it. I mean, you're talking about 100 countries. Where were the Jews dispersed? Let's start, okay? Every country I know of in South and Central America has had them. All or most of, I think every Caribbean island, or practically everyone, Canada and America, have had them. Lots of them. Okay? They've been in Asia, they've been in China, they've been in Japan, they've been in Korea, they've been there too. Have they been in all the African countries? I don't know. They've been in a bunch of them. Okay? They've been in Egypt. They've been in South Africa. They've been in Zimbabwe, what was it, Rhodesia. They've been in Algiers. What are the other ones? Well, I could look. Hang on. It says about Egypt that Egypt will be one of the basest countries, one of the lowest countries, and it'll be deathly afraid of Israel. And that's a nice map that Google has, but it won't focus, so everything is smudged on it. The letters of the country names is blurry. And that's something you get with Google Maps. It's unfortunate. Let me try another one. This one works. Okay, so what countries? They've been in Egypt. Egypt is going to be busted out. Have they been in Sudan? Probably when it was Egypt. And where else? Well, we know they've been in South Africa. We know they've been in Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and Egypt. Do I know if they've been in Nigeria or Niger or no, I don't know. I don't know. I never checked all these countries. You could do it as a project, but they've been in a lot of them. Okay? And now let's go to Europe. And I'm going to show you amount of countries that they were in Europe, then it's going to be frightening to you. I mean, these are all going to get destroyed, or the Bible's not true, which is not the case. Now let's see if this one focuses. Yes, it did. Oh, it's not in English, so I don't know what it was in. Some foreign language I'm not interested in. Trying to figure out what the language is. Let's try another map. Not a great map, but it works a little bit. So what countries were the Jews in Europe? Definitely Russia. Okay? Were they in Finland? Not too much that I know of, but I don't know. Were they in Denmark? Yes. Were they in Norway? Yeah. They hid from Hitler there. Were they in Poland? Extensively in Poland. Were they in Romania? Yep. Bulgaria? Don't know. Greece? Turkey? Yes, somewhat, I think. Yugoslavia? No knowledge. Hungary? Definitely. Czechoslovakia? Definitely. Austria? Definitely. Italy? No doubt about it. Spain, Portugal? No doubt about it. Switzerland? No doubt about it. Italy? No doubt about it. Germany? No doubt about it. Netherlands, I'm thinking yes, but I don't know. The UK, definitely. France, definitely. So that's a massive piece of land. Okay? It's got to be at least 100 countries. Now, what do we learn from Jeremiah 30:11? You got to try to put the pieces together here. That's what I'm trying to show you. For I am with thee, saith Jehovah, to save thee. Now, this is probably the beginning of him starting to turn his face towards us. Though I make a full end of all the nations, whither I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. Okay, so he's going to make a full end or an annihilation of these nations, not necessarily killing everybody in this nation. These nations are, it tells us they're going to go into captivity. They're going to have to leave their country. So the country itself, the government, that's all going to get busted up to the point where they want to leave. So that's probably a result of the wars. Okay? Now, could it also be a result of famine and earthquakes? And yeah. But I think the wars are going to be the big thing. And they're going to leave. The ones that lived through it, they're going to go someplace else. Like the Israelites had to do. They left their land, so they went to Portugal, then they got thrown out. They went somewhere else. They got thrown out of Germany. They got thrown out of here, thrown out of there. They went someplace else. Hitler was expelling them before he started killing them, you know. A lot of them got out. So you've got a good 100 countries as a guess that are going to be no more very shortly. Do you understand this? Or the Bible's wrong. And the Bible's not wrong. And that's what you're going to see. Like 100 countries gone. Nobody will be living there. That's a punishment because of what they did to the Israelites, the way they treated them. it's the Bible. It's got to come true. It can't not come true. It has to happen. Okay? The church isn't telling you this. The church wants to promote the daughter of Babylon and all that. We got a good point from somebody in the chat. It says all the scattered Israelites suddenly leaving these places would probably collapse them by itself. Well, not necessarily so. Like France, I don't know what they got in France, 60, 90 million people, and they got maybe, a few 100,000 Jews. It's not going to collapse. No. I am pretty much aware that 2 witnesses are going to have to go expedite the Israelites leaving these countries. They're going to go do signs and wonders in these countries to let the leaders know that Jehovah sent them. And these people are going to be leaving with wealth and riches, donations, like what Egypt did with the Israelites. Here, take the gold, take the silver, just go. And Pharaoh couldn't leave it alone. He had to go chase after them and ruined his army. Then they all got killed and stuff. So Pharaoh resisted, and they destroyed Egypt. They remember in the Bible it says his advisors, his wise men or whatever, went to Pharaoh and told him, "Don't you know Egypt's a disaster? It's a wreck." They wrecked the place. Was Moses and Aaron a type of the 2 witnesses early on? You bet. What do you think they were? They were judges, outright. We know that. They had the 70 counselors. The same thing's going to reproduce. There were prophets. The next 2 prophets coming are the 2 witnesses. Now, people can prophesy as a gift of the Spirit. That's not the same thing. So I was just speaking of this. I was wrestling with the Lord. Well, I wasn't wrestling. I was kind of pleading with him about giving the true believers more power. Now, I noticed my spiritual warfare efforts have gotten much better. And I don't think my techniques improved that much. I think it's something to do with the Lord. But it's either me or the Lord or both of us. But they're getting better. They're more effective. But I said, Lord, they bounced back. There was one that was working a plot against my wife. And I went to work on them, and they withdrew fairly immediately. And, then I'm waiting. Well, there was a previous one that I went to work on, and then these other ones stepped in, and then I went after them, and I'm waiting for the next one. But I've stopped them from bringing a next one, so there's not going to be a next one anymore. So people try to get me, but it's hard. I live a life much like a recluse because of my physical issues and stuff like that, and I got work to do, and I don't see that great anymore, and I get tired, and I have arthritis issues and different things. So it's not just being crazy, although probably being crazy is part of it. My wife reminds me of that. But I've noticed it increasing, so I was saying, well, why can't we call down blindness on them, even temporarily, or deafness, or mute where they can't talk, or they can't move, or something like that. And what the Lord showed me, and he was correct, is you start doing that, and they're going to go kill you. So then we have to open up into a new chapter to stop them from killing, and that's something that is going to come, but we're not there yet. We're not ready for that yet. It's not the right timing for it, is probably the best way to verbalize it. So if you were not just, binding them and, demon tossing them and stopping the demons from doing stuff, if you were really going after them in the flesh, like don't see for 90 days, they would definitely try to kill you. And if you went around healing the sick extensively, what would they do about that? Well, let's look back in history about a certain guy named Yeshua HaMashiach, and he did that, and what did they try to do to him? Kill him. What will they do to you? Kill you. They'll try. You see my point? The Lord's been giving me a lot of insights about stuff like this. So, they'll try to kill you. So when that stuff happens, and it will happen, it has to be, full on. Well, like the apostles were doing that stuff, and if you read in Acts 2, the people were afraid of them. Well, why? Well, we know certain things happened, that, Paul called blindness down on a guy. They went to stone Paul. Remember reading that? They threw rocks at Paul, and then when they got finished throwing rocks, he got up and walked away. Now, did they kill Paul? I don't think so. Usually the dead would be raised from the dead by another person. We don't read that. He just got up and walked away. Did the rocks hurt him and God was healing him? Probably most likely the rocks weren't doing anything to him. Well, what do you mean? How could that be? Well, in the book of Daniel, they went and stood in a furnace. Why don't you take your hand and turn a gas burner on the stove and just put your hand 3 or 4 inches away from the flame and see what it feels like? Did it hurt them? Were they screaming? Were they combusting? Were they getting, blisters from the flame? No, none of that. Nothing. So if he could do it with the flames, can he do it with people throwing rocks? Yeah. Exactly what happened, I don't know. You'd have to talk to Paul. Maybe he felt it like this. Why did he fall down? Maybe he was making himself a smaller target. He just fell down. Then he got up and walked away. The snake, a highly toxic snake, bit him out of a pile of logs from the shipwreck, and he just shook the thing off. Maybe he threw it off. I don't know. The snakes got them fangs that are kind of hollow, and they shoot toxins, poison into you. So I don't know if he ripped it off like that or how he got. Maybe he just shook it, but he did it in the flames. So my thoughts would be. Remember, I talked to you a few minutes ago about the ticks. My thoughts now that just came to me, I guess the Lord quickened it to me, is when he put the snake by the flame, it got hot, right? And the snake doesn't have guard protecting it, so it's not Daniel in the furnace, it's snake in the fire, and the snake had no protective. So the snake let go and got the heck out of there. Didn't want to, but he wound up falling in the fire anyway. But the first reaction, the snake would have the fangs, he's hanging in, and then he feels the flame, he's going to not think like a human, he's going to think like a dumb snake and think, oh, I better let go and get out of here, and it didn't work, and he fell in the fire. He probably burned up and died, painfully too. And what happened to Paul? Nothing. Did we read, they said, Paul, give me your arm, and sucked the toxins out? No. Give me a razor blade. They cut it out and squeeze it, get it out. Oh, I got a snake kit here with a rubber thing. It'll pull it out. No. Paul pretty much nonchalantly ignored it. If you imbibe any deadly thing, it will not hurt you. You shall pick up serpents and scorpions. And Paul knew the scriptures, and he didn't worry about it. He got rid of it. He threw it in the fire. Now the natives, now I don't know if Paul understood what was going to happen until it happened. I suspect he didn't know. I suspect, I could be wrong. But the natives over there said, wow, look at that. They were sitting there watching him, and they knew what would happen when you got snake bit by this kind of snake. I don't know what the kind of snake was. It was some kind of viper thing. And they were expecting him to, have, I guess, all kinds of circulation issues and blow up and die in a short period of time. So they were watching him and waiting to watch it happen. And it never happened. And Paul didn't lay down and get sick and pale and dry mouth or anything. So they saw this highly poisonous snake bite him. Now, some of the churchianity people would say, well, this was probably a snake that was used by a snake charmer and had his poison glands removed. That's the way they would tell it probably. Who cares what they would say? It's not true. So they got impressed, and then Paul got through them as a result of this miracle. Now, we don't know what other miracles the apostles did, but I imagine they were extensive, okay? So the casting out of demons has a clause in it in Luke 10, which I should read. Why not, right? Okay. Luke 10. What are you girls doing back there? I'm hearing noises again. I don't know what they're up to. I have the dogs walking around, the big dogs. Ooh, let me take a quick check on the weather, just to make sure I don't want the little guys out there when it's too hot. Hang on a minute. Let me go bring the dogs in real fast. I'll be really quick, and then we'll do Luke 10. It's 90 degrees. They gotta come home. I can't beat that. All right, I'll be right there, guys. Give me a second. You guys nice and cool in here now? It wasn't so bad where you were in the shade. What are you guys doing? I don't know what you're doing. Okay. Be good. Don't do bad things in here. Okay, I'm going to kind of open stuff up to you. The Lord was showing me stuff I should show you that explains a lot of things about where we're at, okay? Because we have the true gospel. And we're not yet where two or more are gathered in my name. There I am with them, and when two or more you agree, it shall be done. We're not exactly doing that yet. We are and we aren't. We're doing it long distance. And does that count? And probably counts to some extent. But Luke 10. What, verse 17 maybe? I don't remember the verse. It's in 10. I found it. He that heareth you, this is 10:16 in Luke, chapter 10, verse 16. He that heareth you, heareth me. And he that despiseth you, despiseth me. And he that despiseth me, despiseth him that sent me. And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Lord, even the devils are subject unto us. Now you got to understand the word subject. Okay? This clause here, well, let's start with devils, which is Strong's Greek number 1140, demonian, demons, okay? It means demons. With joy, even the devils, and then are subject unto. That's 5993. Place or arrange under, subordinate, bring under influence, subordinate, brought under state or influence. Okay, let's keep reading definitions for this. Subordinate, to obey, be under, obedience, like a dog. Put under, subdue unto, make subject to. Arrange under, subordinate. Okay, so we're doing spiritual warfare now. That's good. You like that. I like it. We all like it. It looks good. It feels good. It is good. Spiritual warfare. Looks good, feels good, is good. I gotta plug the charger in. And because the battery is going kaput, I gotta manipulate this for a minute. Not a big deal. Okay, done. All right, so subject unto, subordinate, submit to you. It's more than just tossing demons out of it. Okay? And this has only recently come to light. I'm doing it. I'm teaching this. Nobody else is yet that I know of. I wish there was thousands doing it. It'd be better for us. Subject unto us through thy name. And he saith unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. He's relating that in the past tense, by the way. So it was going to happen in the future. Why would he put it in the past tense? And Satan said, I'll to Yeshua when he was testing him for the 40 days, I'll give you all these kingdoms of the world, they're mine to give. Well, Satan was already kicked down to earth if he had those kingdoms. Do you got it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Okay. Satan told Yeshua, I'll give you all these kingdoms of the earth. He took them up and showed it to him. And, of course, Yeshua didn't go for it. And he said, they're mine to give. I got them all. Well, he was already kicked out. That's why he was down to earth and had those kingdoms. He was already thrown out of heaven. Why would he be here with these kingdoms if he was still in heaven as the accuser? It wouldn't. It didn't make no sense, okay? And Yeshua said, I beheld, in the past tense, Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Behold, I give unto you power to tread. What does the word tread mean? 3961 Strongs. To tread. Trample. Tread down underfoot. Crush with your feet. All right? We got the power to tread on the unclean spirits, to crush them under our feet. They're subordinate to us. Can you dig it? You got it. Yes, get it. It's the truth. It's the Bible. To tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. The serpents and the scorpions are referencing, for the most part, I believe, these locusts that come out of the pit in Revelation 9 with tails like serpents and stingers. They're not going to bother you. And over all the power of the enemy. You can do that to anything the enemy can do, you can tread underfoot. And nothing shall by any means hurt you. So they can't hurt you. Okay? Now, if you start calling down, hail and brimstone on the enemy, they're going to figure the only chance they got is to submit to God or kill you. And they'll try to kill you. Now, it wouldn't work right now because there's no organization amongst the believers. And for congregations to form, who, contrary to church world teachings, who forms the congregations but the apostles, and who administers them and supervises them but the apostles? And what did Yeshua say, speaking to the disciples, which became the apostles? There be some standing here today that shall not taste of death until they see the kingdom of God. Well, the church will tell you, well, yeah, that means the power of God. Well, that's not a valid argument because Yeshua was demonstrating the power of God to them for years, raising the dead on down the line, right? So they saw the power of God. No, it means the kingdom of God, which would mean New Jerusalem. So there's going to be at least 2 apostles here because he sends them out 2 by 2. There could be 4, there could be 6. Forget Fox's Book of Martyrs. That's not gospel. That's some schmuck churchianity book to scare you and repel you. Forget that crap. Don't read that. Okay? That's not real. That's not Bible or anything. Ignore it. Okay? So there's apostles here. Paul said he would be poured out like a drink offering. I doubt Paul will be one of them. No. But we don't know which apostles it's going to be. Probably John, because it says he has to prophesy again and stuff like that. So I expect John will be here. Anyway, there you have it. Okay, so we're slightly disorganized right now to start going around and doing the serious signs and wonders. It'll happen, but don't think it's happening today yet. Okay? Things have to be more in position for that. One thing is when you do the signs and wonders, and listen to me, I'm going to try to open all this stuff up for you. When you do the signs and wonders, you got to have a place to take these people. When you were reading in Acts 2, 3,000 got saved in a day, 5,000 whatever. They had congregations to take them to and help them raise them up and, explain what happened to them, explain what's going on, explain who Yeshua is, teach them the scriptures, all this stuff. You need to have congregations. To have congregations, you need the apostles. Now, there's apostles here waiting until the light turns green, I'm pretty sure. I am sure, but they're not operating yet either. When all this stuff kicks in, the two witnesses and the apostles are going to be operating openly. Now, making war against apostles is one of the stupidest things in the world an SBOT can do. There are stupider things than that, but not many. That takes the cake pretty good. Now, in the older days, when Israel was not heading to redemption at that time, they were calling down blindness and stuff like that. Imagine what they'll do today, the apostles, what they'll call down. Oh yeah, they'll put it on them. You think they're just going to sit there and let their disciples get killed by the SBOTs? No, forget that. That won't happen. They'll protect them. And then the gifts of the Spirit will be operating in the believers. Remember Yeshua, they would be surrounding Yeshua and they tried to get him and he would just walk through the crowd. What did he do? I don't know. Did he become invisible? Did they not see him? Could he make himself not detectable or something? I don't know what he did. He did something like that. Maybe God did that. Maybe God confused them or something so he could just walk through. But they would have killed him long before when they did kill him. Also, a lot of them are going to wake up when they start seeing the dead raised and the people with missing limbs getting healed and Down syndrome people turning normal and stuff like that. They're going to get pretty confused and bewildered, and they're going to, so the pieces are not all in place yet. First, I think we're going to see the powers of the nations fall apart as per Jeremiah 30, verse 11. And I think the daughter of Babylon is going to be at that time one of them that goes. Okay? And then we read, many kings bring the Israelites back as an offering to the Lord and wealth of riches and serve Jehovah and stuff like that. So we're going to see all that too. I can't discern God's precise timetable for the 2,000 years of Hosea 6:1 and 2. So I don't believe Satan and the unclean spirits can either. So they might know it's coming, but they don't know when. Okay? They don't know when. Took stripes for healing, that be only for the believers? Yes, absolutely, just for the believers. Cat, snake, venom found. Oh, they deleted my chat, the little rats. Hold on, let me put it back. I'm going to have to ask the Lord to deal with these. Let's all the true believers only in Yeshua HaMashiach, let's agree that, Father God Jehovah, I pray you severely punish to the point of making it impossible for these people deleting the chat to continue to do so. I pray you do that, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that also. This is getting enough's enough with them. Instead of the demon tossing, which they might not have any demons, let's have God stop them. What he does to him is his business. I don't care what he does to him. It's getting old. See, it's not somebody just sitting here waiting and doing it. It's somebody that's traveling around with I think it's a bot doing it. But there's people behind the bot, and that's who Jehovah will go after, and I hope, and get rid of them somehow. And it could be a maximum demote or something lesser, I don't know. But we'll see what he does. It may take a few days, I don't know. And pray and demon toss as you wish, but again, these idiots may not have demons. So somebody could have paid them to do it. So we'll have to work on that. You can't go after anybody that paid them to do it and toss them. Okay, so back to the lesson. So and they didn't delete everything. So the power we have is pretty good right now. And we could, be stopping the unclean spirits. And the S-bots don't seem to get too concerned about that because it punishes the unclean spirits most severely, but they don't know that. The unclean spirits just treat it casually. Oh, they do that, don't worry, I'll go for a while, don't worry about it, we're still in control, and that kind of thing. But when you start getting them, then they're going to start getting bloodthirsty. So we've got to keep pushing on with what we can do. And it's plenty. It messes them up. If there was a few thousand like us that were tossing, the nations would have fallen apart a long time ago, But again, it's got to be God's timing. And I don't think the punishment needs to be fulfilled for the whole 2 days of Hosea 6:1 and 2, or 2,000 years, and then it'll happen. And I am pretty secure that Satan doesn't know the precise timing of that. Okay. I'm not sure I know. I mean, I could guess, come out at 63 AD when the Romans started laying the siege. But I can't for sure say that's it, So, I don't know. It's a good choice, but so 70 AD a good choice. So is a lot of things. So I have one toss request today for Mike. Mike toss. I don't have any prayer requests, just that one toss request. And let's see what's going on with the current events here. We won't go into it too deep, but we'll go into it deep enough. Um, Trump has got more criminal cases, but now they're saying Trump has. This is what I'm reading in the media, lots of media. He has now he could use the subpoena power of the courts to try to go in and show that the 2020 election was what he thinks it was, which is remains to be seen what kind of proof he comes up with if he does, and it also remains to be seen what the judges let him do or not do. But the papers of the media are saying he's elated for this new power they got with the subpoenas, and he could prove his case. But what's what we need to understand is the judges did not file these criminal cases against Trump. The prosecutors did, so they might allow Trump this discovery in the form of subpoenas, and they may not. I don't know. We'll have to see. But Trump's pretty happy about it. We'll see. I don't know what's going on. But we won't know until it actually happens. When we see what Trump can subpoena and what the subpoenas result in. The UK is reducing the number of diplomats it has in this country, Niger, Niger, not Nigeria, Niger, due to the trouble over there. And the American government is saying that they don't have any evidence that Russia's behind this problem in Niger. So it could be a lot of people just blaming it on Russia that don't know anything. And if the U.S. government is taking up and saying we have no evidence Russia was behind this, it probably isn't. As a guess, I'm sure that if they had evidence that Russia did do it, they would be forthcoming with the evidence. What's going on with Netanyahu is more of the same. He's going to plod through with his stripping the power of the court. The Supreme Court is holding what's called a key hearing on shielding Netanyahu from removal from office. See, Netanyahu had them pass a law early on, the Knesset, our Congress or Parliament, same thing. It's a one-house Congress. Passed a law that said that to get Netanyahu thrown out of office, it would have to be 75% vote of the Knesset, and it would have to be based on like medical or something like that. All right. The High Court of Israel was on Thursday morning, that's today, holding, today it's almost 12 o'clock, so it was a few hours ago, or an hour ago, I don't know, holding a pivotal hearing on petitions against the law passed earlier this year that prevents the court from ordering the removal of the sitting prime minister in what could herald a new phase in the hard right government's showdown against what it claims is an overpowered justice system. The coalition passed an amendment to the quasi-constitutional basic law, the government eliminating the High Court's theoretical option, never before used, of ordering prime ministers to step down. The law stipulated that this power will only lie with the government and the Knesset based on medical grounds, and requires the support of 75% of the cabinet ministers and 80 lawmakers in the 120-member parliament. So actually it got it a little bit different. So 80 out of 120 is 2/3, and 75% of the cabinet members. But it can only come from medical reasons, like a gunshot, fell off a ladder, cracked his head open, dementia, stuff like that. The law was passed as Israeli society was undergoing a schism over the government's judicial overhaul. So the conflict of interest deal barred Netanyahu from involving himself in making changes to the justice system due to concerns such legislation could benefit him down the road in his legal battles with the street criminal cases. So Netanyahu signed the letter in 2019 or 21 or something that he would, he told the court he would not intervene or get involved in any changes to the judicial system because it was a conflict of interest, and they did this because he could influence his court case this way. So hours after the law was passed about them the court not being able to put him out of office, hours after the law was passed, Netanyahu held a primetime press conference announcing that he would from then on publicly involve himself in the overhaul push. This received immediate pushback from the Attorney General, who warned him doing so would be illegal due to the agreement he had signed. The petitions under debate Thursday, filed by the Movement for Quality Government and by opposition member Knesset, blah, 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 claimed the law was only passed to personally benefit Netanyahu and serve a short-term interest of his, which they argue constitutes abuse of the Knesset power to make an amendment to basic law. Thursday live-streamed hearing, which began at 10 o'clock in the morning, was being overseen by the Supreme Court Chief Justice Esther Hayut, her deputy Uzi Vogelman, and Justice Isaac Amit. The hearing was the first on the law, but not necessarily the last, and the panel of judges discussing the matter could later be expanded. So the idea here was to strike down this law, thus Netanyahu could be removed from being prime minister because he is violating the terms of that agreement he made in writing. That would not let him be the acting or the interim prime minister. That would be the end of Netanyahu. Then I'm sure the court would progress his trials as rapidly as they could, and goodbye Netanyahu. Who would be the prime minister then, I do not know, but I have a feeling it would lead to a vote. It would lead to a new coalition via an election. It would have to go that route, I think. Who would be the interim prime minister? I don't know. Benny Gantz or Yair Lapid, probably. I don't know. I mean, this is uncharted water. We don't know what'll happen. A highly controversial, the judiciary that limited high court oversight of the government, the prime minister has repeatedly refused to say whether he would adhere to a potential ruling in which the High Court of Justice strikes down a basic law, though he did warn the court against doing so. Other members of his Likud party have said such a ruling would be respected but would nevertheless cause a crisis in the country. However, several far-right ministers indicated Thursday that they won't respect a ruling striking down the law. So they're saying that the Knesset has the power to pass laws that the Supreme Court thinks are not correct laws, that they shouldn't be passed. They don't have they shouldn't be passed for various reasons, and they're going to ignore the Supreme Court. So that means Netanyahu would be told by the Supreme Court to step down, and he won't. Could you imagine the problems we're going to have in Israel over that one? It would be the end of this democracy, I think. And that could happen any day now. We don't need to respect the High Court decision just like it doesn't respect the Knesset's decision. See, he said that even discussing the petitions was illegitimate, calling a potential voiding of the law obviously illegal. Well, what if the Knesset voids out the Supreme Court? You see, they can't do that. Because the democracy has three ingredients. It has the executive branch, which is Netanyahu. It has the legislative branch, which the predominant party is the Likud, which Netanyahu is the chairman of. And the third branch is the judicial. So when you take the judicial away, you leave Netanyahu with the executive and the legislative branch. So that makes Netanyahu a dictator. That's the problems. Netanyahu's Likud party ministers were dumping on the court for even holding these hearings. she might not order him to step down. She might strike that law aside, the High Court Chief Justice. Okay, then what she could do is order him to stop finagling with the judicial system because of his conflict of interest. Then if he ignores that, then she could ask him to tell him to step down. So the first step isn't going to be Netanyahu step down, it's going to be setting aside that law. That law was the beginning of the next law, well, one of the latter laws, which was going to say any decision of the Supreme Court against the law that Knesset passes need only go back to the Knesset for a second vote, and the Knesset gives it 75% approval. No, 61 votes, a basic simple majority, then it becomes law in spite of what the Supreme Court said. He hasn't done that one yet. He's trying to start with the easier ones, so the court's shutting him down. The High Court shut down a petition to evacuate an illegal Homesh outpost in the West Bank. That was in favor of the Jews. They're putting some bill in the Knesset to make more rabbis get paid by the Israeli governments. In other words, the municipalities are going to have to hire at least one rabbi. So they're going to make, that's the city. So all the different cities will have to hire a rabbi, and they're making work for the rabbis. You see, the ultra-Orthodox are pushing this way too far. Nobody in Israel wants to put up with this crap. Only Netanyahu gives it to him because they're threatening to leave the coalition. He doesn't like it. These people are just trying to be like leeches and suckle us. All because they spread the Talmud. They don't even do Bible. They do an extra biblical book. It's nonsense. They're also trying to get a law passed where Israel historic public parks and monument places, that when you got water with the beach, that has to be segregation of the sexes. That means the women, the secular Israeli women, aren't going to be able to be with their husbands, and the brothers not with the sisters. Let me tell you something. The people in Israel are going to get livid. 50% of Israel, as a guess, is secular, and they are going to start venting on the ultra-Orthodox violently. In my opinion, they will spit at them in the street, they will push them, shove them, knock their hats off. They're not going to be able to go out in the street. They're stupid people. They get an 8th grade education and then they sit and study the Talmud. Studying the Talmud is going to do you about as much good as studying the Tibetan Book of the Dead or the owner's operator manual for a 1967 Ford Galaxy 500. What good's it going to do you? It doesn't do them any good. It's not a good godly book. It's a nonsense book. Contradictions and conflicts and stuff, to confuse people. They don't know what they're doing. And they are so confused and in such darkness This is going to cause so many problems for them. Putting the rabbis on is going to infuriate the people. Now doing this segregated beaches and swimming, the people are going to go nuts on them. Going to go nuts, and they don't want to go in the draft. They are pushing it too far. If they did one thing every year, they might have put the people to sleep and got away with it. But they know Netanyahu's not long for this world as a politician. So they're stupid. It just shows me how dumb they are. They don't know what they're doing. The Shas party probably knows a little bit more than United Torah Judaism, but they don't know too much. Jerusalem Post has a picture of some kids here that were liberated from the Nazi concentration camps with a train, and some woman posed next to them. They don't have much strength, these kids. The Nazis probably took all the food and ran away from the camps, the soldiers, and just left them there. And they were so weak, they probably didn't know what to do, and then the soldiers got them and started feeding them, but the soldiers, the doctors with the soldiers were telling them, feed them slowly, because they're starving to death. So they did. Here's a woman from the concentration camps that's standing next to, I think, an American tank. And this is some days after she was liberated. So she has clothes, and she'd been eating, so she restored herself. Young woman eats again, she'll bounce back. I grew up with them in the neighborhood in the Bronx. They were not rare, and you used to see the numbers, and they wouldn't talk about it at all. I never heard him talk about it to anybody. Iran is working to take over Syrian chemical weapons industry. This would be a bad thing, and Israel may start blowing these things up. And this is probably Russia's doing. Russia will probably think this is funny. The more I look at this BRICS thing that Russia and China are basically trying, the less I think it's going to work. The less I think it's going to work. Okay, let's check the chat. See if we got deleted again. No. Okay, so please pray for me, Moshe, and my wife, Rivka. Pray for our peace, safety, protection, and joy, and our calm and rest. And pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole, and not run away or fight with each other or the wrong people and beasts. They're all rescues. We're going to have maybe a new bird coming here. He's in bad shape. we'll see how it goes. He's plucking all his feathers out. We don't know yet. And he's in bad shape. We'll probably have to keep him in the house with us, in a cage for a while, months, probably 2-3 months, and then we might be able to partition him an area in the big aviary, and he could go there. But he's bigger than the African grays, so we got to be careful with that. And we don't know for sure about this. So pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for better videos. Thanks to those that are giving offerings. You're helping me keep this going, and I'll keep you updated. This thing with the Supreme Court and Netanyahu could very quickly blow. They say, Netanyahu, you got to step down, or they knock the law out, and then Netanyahu says, no, we refuse. So now you have a fight where Netanyahu is saying that the Supreme Court doesn't have power over us. We could neutralize them, and then the Supreme Court says, no, you can't neutralize one of the branches of the democracy, and then we can go into civil war just like that, this week, next week, whatever. So be advised that that could happen, and then I believe the 2 witnesses will emerge. And I have other reason to believe they'll be emerging openly pretty quickly. And will the apostles emerge at that time too? I don't know, probably. Probably. And do the apostles know the 2 witnesses? I would have no reason to believe they ever met. I don't believe they ever met. Yet. Will they get along? Oh gosh, yes. Of course they'll get along. They'll be great friends. Will they work together? Absolutely. Who would be higher? It's a good question. I don't think they're going to pull rank on anybody, but see, there's been prophets, but the apostles are not just the 2 witnesses are not just prophets or something else. I expect they would be higher. But you're not going to have any strife. Forget that. They're going to all get along. All get along. And then there'll be all kinds of amazing things happening. You'll be very happy. And that could happen any time now. And that could happen and it not be the year of recompenses and the year of redemption. It could be before that happens. Redemption would involve our land is redeemed, we're redeemed. It may not be that yet. The 2 witnesses are going to be around a long time, a lot longer than what the churches paint the picture to be. So they'll be there till the almost extreme end of the tribulation, probably right up to the last day or 2 or 3 of the tribulation. And the tribulations on the nations, not on Israel. Okay, so I hope you got something good out of this, and I will keep trying to do good videos and good work for you, and remember to stay in touch with my Telegram and Twitter too. When the wars break out, they'll be extremely important. Extremely. If you don't know where they are, send me an email. And my website's still up there, and I'll be using the website a lot if the war breaks out. A lot. It's moishehacom.com. And I didn't really get too far trying to find a live streaming chat software to run on the website. I don't know how to do that yet. I don't know if it's possible. In other words, I don't know if that kind of software exists. So is still contemplating how to do Zoom. Maybe I can find a way to do it, but if I do find a way to do it, which I think I have, what time of day do I do it? This is perplexing to me. If I do Zoom in my morning, it's middle of the night for North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. The time is good for Europe. That's it. Asia, it's worse. The timing, it's going to be like big time difference. It could be the next day. It could be that if I'm doing it 9 o'clock in the morning, it's 9 o'clock at night in Australia, which may not be that bad. I don't really have viewers in South Korea, North Korea, Japan, Taiwan, China. I might have a couple, but I don't know of any. It'd be pretty small if I did. Hong Kong, I used to have a few. I don't know. And there's probably several there. So what time do I do it? I could do it in my evening, which is the morning in America. But, in the morning in America, people are getting dressed. They're going to work. They're getting the kids to school. They got to get the shopping done. They got to start their day. They're not going to sit around for 2 or 3 hours and do a live stream. If I do it in the middle of the afternoon and people are at work, people are picking the kids up in the middle of the afternoon, people are doing things. If I do it in the evening, then the people are making dinner, eating dinner, the kids are doing homework and getting ready for things, and if I do it in the early evening, maybe that works. But the early evenings in the middle of the night here, I don't think I can run myself down and do that. It's really hard. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand the value of the live stream when we're spread around the world with time frames. I don't quite grasp it. I'm always open to suggestions, okay? What Zoom would let us do is people could talk and ask questions and spread comments and talk. But if we get the S-bots in there, it's not going to be good. And then the S-bots are going to see who you are, and they'll start bothering you. They bother me, and they'll bother you. So I don't know what to do. I don't think it's going to be very helpful. I don't know. Okay, I'll keep, pray for it. Pray that the Lord shows me how to expand this ministry. And pray that the Lord shows me how we can expand the spiritual warfare. And that's what I got, guys. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And